Good evening, and welcome to today's Tropics for May 18th, 2020. Please note, I'm not a meteorologist, and this video is just a collection of my thoughts and opinions about the storms I'm talking about. And for any decision making, please consult the National Hurricane Center or your local officials. Now, today I'm looking at Tropical Storm Arthur, which is moving away from the Carolina coast as we speak, and Cyclone Amphan, which is currently in the Bay of Bengal but approaching land in the next few days. Let's first of all look at Tropical Storm Arthur. It's obviously not that impressive right now. The circulation center is exposed and it just doesn't look as tropical anymore, but it was a lot more impressive earlier today when there's a recon mission inside the storm and it actually deepened 8 millibars in only a few hours. This was because there's some convection that was actually overhead of the storm center as shear is still low, and the warmer Gulf Stream waters allowed the higher lapse rates to actually fire convection over the storm. And in addition, there's a baroclinic leaf type feature that was around during the day that indicated that there's some baroclinic forces also acting on the storm, likely the gradient at the end of the Gulf Stream that was helping to also give Arthur some energy. So it isn't too much of a surprise that it did end up intensifying. But now that is coming to a close, at least the tropical intensification, as shear starts to come in from the southwest from an upper low near it, which is exposed the circulation center and really made it look disheveled, and is also pushing some dry air into the storm as we speak. So there isn't as much favorable conditions for convection to actually blossom there. In addition, the Arthur is starting to track into a cooler area of the Gulf Stream, so there's lower lapse rates to take advantage of, and this results in less convection and more of its energy being gotten from the gradient between the warm Gulf Stream and the very cold waters off of the east coast north of the mid-Atlantic. And this is obviously a baroclinic feature, so that means Arthur will be relying more on baroclinic features like this and less on barotropical ones, such as convection firing over the center, and as a result Arthur is becoming extratropical, and it will be able to strengthen in the next couple of days as it is able to harness the energy of the temperature gradient to become a strong extratropical storm. And it will also track along this ridge for a little bit before the short wave comes down from Quebec, and this upper low moves to the south, which allows the ridge to the west to amplify, and this long wave trough in the Atlantic to dig down, which means the flow in the mid-levels for Arthur is more of a northwesterly type, which turns it to the southeast and south towards Bermuda, and that means it tracks into a region that more has a homogeneous sea surface temperature gradient, so there's much less gradient than it's currently experiencing, because the sea surface temperatures are still quite cool, and this means there's not much energy to get from this region, barotropic or baroclinic, and that means as Arthur tracks towards Bermuda, it will progressively weaken and eventually dissipate as it tracks into this region. The latest National Hurricane Center cone looks at this rather well, as it has Arthur rounding the top of the ridge around the 70 degrees west and then getting pushed to the south by that interaction of more northerly winds, and also has it progressively weakening from a peak after it becomes a fully extratropical storm to becoming just borderline tropical storm strength as it passes Bermuda. So it's likely that Bermuda will get some gusty winds, but it's not going to have significant impacts as it reaches this region. And also, since it is still a tropical storm and there's some wind, some of the mid-Atlantic region might have some high surf due to the strong easterly winds from Arthur. But otherwise, um, the main impacts have already passed, and Arthur really won't have any impacts after this for the United States, and will have some mild impacts for Bermuda, but nothing too extreme. Next up is Cyclone Amphan, which right now it doesn't look as well or as good as it did earlier, as after it exploded into a Category 5 equivalent cyclone, as it is undergoing an eye wall replacement cycle, and as a result, the eye is pretty much gone. The storm is still strong, and the eye will come back, but this is likely stopping the rapid intensification for the time being. And will keep the intensity maybe down for a bit before it possibly intensifies again, depending on environmental conditions. A recent scan, though, over the system only a few hours ago shows that the outer eye wall is starting to become dominant, which means that the eye wall replacement cycle is ending soon, and the satellite presentation may improve soon and allow some intensification to commence. However, the environment won't be perfect. There is an upper anticyclone to the east and north a bit of Amphan right now that may act to shear it some as it passes by, but eventually, as it tracks towards the coast, the direction of shear will become more in line with the actual direction of the storm. So the shear might be less of an issue. But at the same time, there's some dry continental air over India, which could be brought down by the storm's large circulation, and hopefully it will that dry air might be able to get into the core and weaken Amphan some. Unfortunately, one of the baked-in impacts is surge. It's become so strong that there is a lot of water that's being carried by the system, and even if it does weaken, there will be surge that will come with it. And even if it weakens a lot, it does take time for that high surge to come down, and it doesn't look like it will. It will weaken considerably before it heads into the coast, but it will weaken some, so it won't hit Bangladesh and the West Bengal region of India at peak strength, but it will be a very strong cyclone and likely cause a surge and flooding in very high populated, very low-lying regions, and could also impact the Ganges Delta here with some possibly near tropical storm force winds, which could pile some surge into this smaller region, causing high surge in this region as well, which means that surge is definitely a big issue with this storm, and but it will, along with the wind and rain, and could possibly flood low-lying, generally poor and very densely populated regions, which could cause some very bad effects if there aren't enough preparations done. Hopefully, there's more weakening, and Amphan is has less bad impacts than are currently expected. But as always, you should be prepared for the worst, but hope for the best with systems like these. Otherwise, there isn't too much significant going on with the tropics right now. If you have any questions or comments about my video, please let me know, and thanks for watching.